Hello, and thank you for joining me to talk about our projects framework. I really appreciate you doing this for me, and I'm actually genuinely interested to have a chat about this and find out a bit more about the projects framework because I quite literally know pretty much nothing about it because I don't use it myself. But I do get candidates are really interested in it because it is obviously quite different to most other companies and different way of working. And most people, I think, are familiar with Agile Scrum methodologies, but obviously not with what we do here at Circuit and how that impacts on everything that we do. So like this will be a really good learning experience for me. So thanks. But first of all, just before we kick off, it'd be really nice if you could just introduce yourself. So Lorenza, do you want to kick off?
Yes, sure. So my name is Lorenza. I'm from Brazil, and I work as a product designer on CRP. And I have been at Circuit for 1.5 years, a little bit more than that. I'm a product designer, so I work on I get a problem that I need to solve, and then I work on the flows and all the screens that we need to change or to create to solve that problem. And I work together with the tech lead, with the developers to make that happen. And also, I also work like exploring stuff. So understanding what is the issue that the user is having currently and where we can make a better app for them also. So there's this part of research and also the part of solving the problem.
Nice. And that's on Circuit Route Planner. You do that.
Yes,
right?
on Circuit Route Planner. Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, hey folks, I'm Nico, and I'm an Android engineer at Circuit. I've been here, I think, almost the same time as Lorenza, more than 1.5 years, almost 2. And I am one of the engineers that do implement the designs, specifically on the Android part. I do work on both Circuit Route Planner and the Circuit for Teams, which is the business version, but mostly on the Route Planner, since the app is basically like shares the same functionality there or both Route Planner and the business version. And yeah, like usually when we work on the project, I'm the one who gonna make these designs into the actual code and then make the app look as much as close to the designs as it needs to be, or talk to the designers that no, it's not possible or something like this. So yeah, I think we'll discuss later that there's always constant push and pull between the designers and the engineers.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks for the intro. So I guess really just taking it right back to the basics. What exactly is the projects framework and how does it work? And that's really broad, I know, but
it's basically the process that we have to come from the problem that we need to solve and to get to the solution, and how and actually like monitoring that after as well, and what is happening with the solution that we came up with. And it has 3 phases, basically. The first one is the exploring phase, where we are still trying to understand what is the problem exactly, and if the problem that we think it's the problem is really the problem. So it's the time that we have to talk to users, to talk to the engineers also, to understand what we have in the app right now, and understand the problem and make it something that we can solve. I would put it like this. Then we have the preparing phase, which is it's not the design phase, because sometimes it involves also other parts of the team, like the engineers, because sometimes we need to understand the limitations that we have. For example, in the scanner project, we needed to understand what was possible to build on both apps. So the preparing phase went from the design to the engineers a lot of times, back and forth. And also with the tech, with the PM, of the project, because we need to understand what it's the strategy behind this project and what we are trying to achieve with that, the outcome that we want to have.
Yeah.
So the preparing phase, it's a lot of talking. I would resume it like that. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but yeah. And
so that's the push and pull thing that Nico was just talking about. Yeah.
Yes, we need to talk a lot, and it's important for us to understand the whole context, right, before we can solve the problem. And the third phase is the implementing part, which is the moments where the designer hands off the design to the engineers, and then they need to make that happen. And usually we need to still chat a lot and talk about stuff and change stuff. It's normal. But the implementing phase is more about they're building the feature or the product that we are trying to do. And then we need to take a look and talk about it and change a little bit here, a little bit there, and until we have the solution that we wanted from the beginning, like with good quality and working well with the limitations that we have and stuff like that. I would put it like this. Yeah.
And do you like, when you said to me sort of when you go on and beyond, so do you sort of hold on to that particular project, I guess, and then revisit that after a period of time to see how it's performing or how it's working, or is that all part of it?
Yes, we do that. We do that, but it's not part of the framework. I think it's a post work that we have. I would say that. It's important, and sometimes it becomes other tickets or other projects because we need to change something that we didn't see when we were working on the project, right?
So
it's not a phase in the framework.
Not a phase, yeah. So how, I think it's probably really important to mention the fact that we work async mostly. So how does that impact the way this works compared to how you've done it in other places that don't work asynchronously?
For me, it's different because in other companies I would have a lot of meetings and I would understand the problem like in phases. Like I have a meeting, I understand the part of it, and then I have another meeting and I'll understand the other part of it. And in here it's different because we have a single thread where we have everything. And so all these phases that I was talking about, the exploring, preparing, and implementing phases, they're all in the same thread, and you can read it again and understand what was the rationale behind everything we decided. So I think this is the most different part of this process, I would say.
But you get all the context
the macros
at once.
are the same. Yeah, you have all the context. Yeah. And everyone has the same information. Like, it's not different.
They're supposed to, yeah. Yeah, can I just add something here? So for the listeners, so we don't use Slack. We use the different tool. It's called Twist. And the thread in Twist is like something between a channel in Slack and a thread on the forum. So it's more like, if you imagine like old school forums, maybe like a subreddit or something like this, and you have like a long discussion, and this ensures that the information is not basically like just flowing in one direction and everybody knows where to go for the information for the particular project. And it also includes like not only the design decisions, but also the technical decisions as well. Like another engineer might find a bug in a different project, so they would know where to post a question of something in this thread.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you about what tools you use actually to with the projects framework. So Twist is one of them. And actually for people who started to join the team as well, I think it's interesting to know. So do you create like new channels for every project, or do you have threads within channels for each project? I think similar to Slack, isn't it, that way, the way that it's constructed? But how does it work? Do you do something fresh and new and then archive it, or is it something that's, it seems like must be a lot of content in Twist.
Yeah, there's a lot, as in any messenger or a chat tool. So basically, I think the general approach we have is one thread per project, and we have a channel which is like again, like it's different to Slack. It's more like a thread is like a channel in Slack, basically. But we have a channel for projects that are currently being developed. And then we have another channel, which is like a group, like a folder, basically, and another folder for the ones that are shipped. And when the project is shipped, it moves from this working folder to the shipped folder. And yeah, usually when the project is started, the first thing is a new thread is created. And there's even like an automation we have, which is like you type some specific words and the bot will kick off the project and like post a message, and you can start like connect in other tools. And do you want to talk about the other tools?
Yeah, what tools do you, yeah, that'd be really good to know actually, what tools you do use.
Yeah, so the Twist and the thread in Twist is for discussion and coordination. It's probably like the go-to tool. So like if you want to know about some project, you just go to the thread in Twist. The other tool for the task management, we use Linear, which is like Jira, but new and shiny. It's very nice, has a lot of automations. For the design, we use Figma, and for code, we use GitHub. And some things are connected and automated. For instance, if you create a pull request for a specific task, in Linear, the Linear would like pick it up, change the status to like in code review or something, and when you close the PR, you merge the code, change it to like implemented or something. And when the stuff is shipped, it will also like change it, so you don't always have to go back and forth between the tools to to make sure everything is all right. What else do we use?
You use Loom. I guess you'll use Looms for quite a lot.
This is one of the most, like, I think like probably the second most used tool after Twist is Loom. And Loom is a tool that lets you record a screen share and narrate it. So we use it for all of the things like discussing something, maybe like shipping a feature. When the project is shipped, we have a
explainer Loom.
The explainer Loom. Yeah, explainer Loom. So everybody in the company can watch it, and basically because we work async, like we don't have a lot of meetings, you don't have to like join the meeting at a specific time and like wait for the presentation and see it. Like you can just watch the Loom video whenever you want, and you can also speed it up, like if you want. Like I think most of the people speed it up, watch it 1.5 times speed, etc.
Love
it. We also use the Loom a lot to explain stuff that are more complicated. Like if it's really difficult to put it into words, sometimes you need to show something to the person for them to understand, like drawing a drawing or a screen or a build, I don't know. So we use it a lot for that. And also when I said that I hand it off to the engineers, we also have this phase in the framework, which is the phase that we call Figma walkthrough Loom. So every project in Circuit has this Figma walkthrough that you can watch and understand everything that is on Figma and how it's structured and organized. So it is easier for the engineers to understand the Figma file and to find the stuff that they need to start implementing or to continue implementing the project. So it's an important phase also. And it's between the preparing phase and the implementing phase. So between 2 and 3.
Right. Okay. So there's quite a lot of elements to this, aren't there? There's a lot
Yes.
going on in managing it. So how does that help? How would you say the projects framework, maybe comparing it to other methodologies, how does it help team members stay on the same page, especially when working asynchronously? How is that a better way of doing it, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
I would say that the best part is that everyone has the same information exactly. Because when I was working in other companies, we would have meetings with a person and then with another person without the first person. And it got like mixed up sometimes, or the person understood something that wasn't it and then communicated this to the other person. So it comes a little bit messier than when you have a Loom that is, everyone is watching the same Loom, right? So probably it's not exactly the same, but people will understand almost the same thing from the Loom.
Yeah,
right? It's easier. Yeah, I think that's the best part.
Is there anything else? Maybe Nick, is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think another thing is that because we work async, it's also easier to stay in focus. So like imagine if you have a weekly meeting or even like a daily stand-up, and if it's like in the middle of the day, you have to drop everything, join the stand-up, and then spin up the whole flow that you had before. Like we don't have this here, so you can just like read the thread or watch the Loom. And in the Loom itself, like for instance, if somebody has questions, you can comment at the specific time in the video. Like if you had, you can see what other people had questions. You can check it out if you had. It often helps if you have the same question, etc. Yeah, I think like. It's but overall, I think like the projects framework is more about stems from that we work async and we kind of small, right? We don't have like 10 engineers working. I think this is one of the main aspects is that we don't have like 10 engineers working on the same project, and as in the most of the companies, right? So we usually have, if we're talking about the mobile projects, we usually have one person on iOS and one person on Android, and one of them would be a tech lead for the project. So the person who would ensure everything from a technical standpoint is covered, like everything works, and also provide the updates like every week, how it's going, etc. And also another thing is the projects don't usually go out on both platforms at the same time. So it's very often that the project is designed and built like for iOS, and then the Android engineer joins like a couple of weeks later. So then like me as an Android engineer, I can just read everything. I can like watch the Looms. And then all the like knowledge and maybe mistakes or decisions that have been like discovered and made and corrected, they're already there. So you just need to like get yourself in this point, and from there like a lot of things are cleared, and you can just jump in straight in and like work on the code, which engineers love to do, right?
Yeah. Do you find that sort of looking back through content phase is a good way of like, does it take a lot of time and like I'm like such a headlines kind of person. I would probably be terrible at this job, but I would find that quite difficult to go through the nitty gritty of like a whole, if there's been a lot of work. Would you say that's one of the downsides of working like this?
Probably. I think like it's not at the downside, because you have the same problem if you use a traditional approach, right? So if you're in the meetings, it's even harder because you don't have the same like a thread where everything is discussed. Something might be discussed in this meeting, that meeting, this people, and that people, and you just cannot know, right? Here, if you want to know, like you can read it. Like it's not necessarily that people read the whole thing. usually I'm as an engineer, if I join later on the project, I would watch the design walkthrough and just like scroll through and find maybe something important that been discussed, like you know, like some technical aspects, like how is it implemented here, etc. Another thing that we didn't mention is during the so the first phase is exploring, then we have preparing, and then we have implementing. So during the preparing, like usually that's when the designs are made, I don't know, designed. So the engineers, if they are on the project, they usually, some projects require, I would say, not only like if you just not only just adding like a new screen or a button, you need to like change the database, or you need a new backend change, etc. We have something called RFC, request for comment, and this is in this phase of the project. Engineers would, the tech lead usually would take the project requirements and like check what needs to be built and put up this RFC document, which is just like a document, and then the other engineers can take a look at it and comment, like maybe something is wrong here, or like there's an assumption that's incorrect because the database works in a different way, or maybe there's a better way to do it. And the engineers would usually, the other engineers who are not necessarily working on the project, but who, you know, maybe familiar with the systems, etc. They can take a look, they can make comments, and then if there's something like really like would require much more time that initially was you know, envisioned for the project, then the tech lead would go back to the thread and say like, oh, I had this discussion, like we cannot do this way as I thought in the beginning. We have to like rethink it, and this might trigger like change in the design, right? Because we cannot do this way. We might want to come up with the other way of doing in the design. Yeah.
And just to quickly reiterate, tech lead, when you're referring to tech lead, just for anyone that might not know, that is not a tech lead in a team as you'd have in a lot of other companies. This is somebody that's
it's not a
leading that particular project.
It's not a
that's technical.
Yeah. So it's not a position. It's not like a
job title,
a role you hire in the company. Yeah, it's not a job title. It's a role you have in the project. So you may be just an engineer who works on the platform, or you may be a tech lead, and it just depends on when the project was started, who was available, etc.
Yeah, and I'm right in thinking you have a technical lead and you have a design lead as well. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those people are sort of responsible for managing that project and then making any sort of final decisions.
Yes, and we also have the PMs, right, for the project. Yeah.
Okay.
Product managers.
Yeah. So that's kind of the dynamic of the three, and then you may have multiple designers, multiple engineers, depending on the size and scope of the project. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's something that I think it's important because it differentiates a lot from other companies. That is, the PM is not in between all phases. Like, they come to help us make the decisions in the preparing phase mostly. And once we have the decision made between us three, then we need we have the final product, right? The final solution for us to ship. But this communication between the designer, the design leads and the tech lead is direct. Like, I'm gonna go to the linear software, and then I'm gonna add the tickets and describe the tickets as I would do as a designer, and then the engineers can grab the tickets already all like written and with all the information that they need. So we don't have a person in between these two phases, which I think is different and is good because you don't have miscommunication. Sometimes we have, but it's not always.
It's actually a good from the especially in smaller projects. It's quite nice for the engineers. Like you join and everything is already there, so you don't have to like create tickets yourself. Sometimes you do, but it's mostly for things like technical stuff or maybe bugs, stuff like that. And we don't have like we don't have a project manager, and we don't the product manager themselves, they don't manage the project in this way. So it's more autonomous, and the decisions so like we have quite a lot of autonomy. Like as an engineer, I can see that's like, oh, this thing has not been covered in the design, like this like user flow, or maybe if you push this button but you were in this state, so I can just like make a decision that, oh, we're gonna do it this way, and then just make sure that everybody knows about this decision, and just commit to it, right? If there's something really important in terms of like it escalates to the like a product vision or strategy, then yeah, we will involve the product manager, because kind of their call to make. But usually it's like it happens very rarely for smaller things, like either I can communicate with Lorenza on the design, or it might be the other way around. The designer can test the app. So because it's another thing, the designers also participate in testing the app, and they can find bugs or something that was not covered, and then talk to the engineers directly in the thread. So it all happens in the thread.
Yeah.
But you don't have to organize the whole.
Testers, do we? We don't have testers that specifically do.
Yeah.
That's all done by. And is it just done
yeah,
by
we have a.
Or do you?
Yeah, we don't have it like as a phase, right? So some companies would have like QA phase, and they have QA team. We don't have it. We have one QA manager who helps a lot in testing, because he used to be a driver, and he finds things that you haven't thought about it, but it might be very common for drivers. So it's very helpful, but it's not something that's like required, like it's really rigid. We usually like all these people, like tech leads, design lead, and the other engineer on another platform. All these people are responsible for the project. So we make sure like we test it rigorously, and do the other stuff, etc.
So all of this, putting all of this together, putting together the fact that it's all your communications done asynchronously, the tools you use, the fact that you have more direct contact with one another without any kind of layers that might confuse things. How does that, for you, how does it impact you and the work that you're able to deliver, and the product, the company? Like, what's the, I mean, I don't know if you know the history behind the framework and how it's built. Do either of you know that, or is that a question for Jack?
I think it's for Jack.
That's a question for Jack.
Yeah. I'll have to ask him that. Yeah, I don't know if it was just sort of built organically from, when I guess it may have been before they put something down, but I'll have to find that out. Maybe follow up with a little.
I think from what I understand, the circle started as a very small team. Basically, it had like 2 engineers, right? Yeah. And it's mostly been the similar way of working on it. And another thing that we didn't mention is not usually, like if you work on a project, you just work on one project. You don't work on multiple projects. Yes. So, as an engineer, I can only have one project. So, and I'm expected to do like 80 to 90% of the time spending on this project, unless something is burning and we have to like fight the fires. Which also happens rarely, luckily. But yeah, most of the time I spend on the project, I can be completely, can dive into it, and don't need to switch. Yeah, because in a lot of companies, especially when you have this like the companies that want to build like a flattish structure, right? So the more senior engineers, they would be like between like 3, 5, 7 projects, and they have to switch context every time. They have to go to different meetings. Here we don't have that. So you just work on one project. You might be fixing bugs from another project that shipped earlier, or fixing just general bugs in between, or maybe smaller tasks. But still your main focus is just one project. And this is how like usually the resources are allocated, right? Okay. So designers and engineers are just on the projects. In between projects, which you can be in between projects, and you can like pick up some smaller tasks or fix bugs, or maybe find something like that you wanted to do before.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And that's quite different.
No, I mean, like
that's quite different to other companies. Then, is it? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Most of you normally like previous jobs you've worked, Lorenza, you would work on like multiple.
Oh yes, multiple projects.
Really?
Sorry, sometimes multiple teams.
Really? So how do you find that pace and that, like for you, Lorenza, how has that changed the way that you work and what you're able
At the beginning, it wasn't easy for me, to be honest, because I thought I was doing less than I should. Really, I thought it's not possible that I just need to work on this and then the next thing, which should be the ideal scenario, but I wasn't used to that. So I was missing the confusion and the chaos that I was living in other companies.
I can relate to that, doing what I do. I would be hiring like 10 roles at a time, and now maybe like 1, 2. If I have 3 now, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so overwhelmed. It's so crazy that is such a different.
You get used to it a lot easier, right? Because it's better. Yeah, for sure. And another thing that was weird for me was that I didn't need to ask for permission to decide stuff. So I would need to make decisions, and then if someone has something to say about my decision and that we need to change it, then we would discuss that on a thread. This is different from me as well, but
so quite publicly where everyone sees it, and
and you need to argument and make the decision like with a lot more people involved. But at the same time, like I could make the decision. I think that was the part that I was like freaking out at the beginning. But I got used to it. I think every project is different, to be honest, but we are dealing with it.
And
it's been good.
So this you actually now you've got used to it. Do you actually prefer working like this, or is it just good but different, or do you like both ways?
Sometimes I feel that for me to be more productive on a daily basis, I need to have like 2 stuff to think about. So this is particular about me probably, but what I do is I have a project and then I grab a single ticket and then I can work on it real quick and then come back to the project, and I have like the opportunity to do that, which is good. And we also have, and I have like, I can choose to do it. This is the most important part. Like if I just want to work on a project and make that happen and not working on anything else at the same time, I can do it. But if I choose to grab a single ticket, I'm also able to do it. So this is good. And we also have some overlaps. I think Nick said something related to that already, but when I'm working on a preparing phase for a project, which is the part where I work the most, like I need to make options for the solution, and I'm working like full time on it. Sometimes I need to stop doing that for a couple hours on a day to go back to the project that I just finished, and it's on implementing phase, and we need to make some decisions that we didn't do in the design phase. So I just stop there and then go back to the project, solve the problem, and then come back to my current project. So we have this dynamic. I think this is good because you don't feel like just doing one thing and that's it. For me, this is good. So I really like that dynamic of having some overlaps as well, but it's not like having 5 projects from different contexts at the same time. It's different than that. It's better than that.
And why do we do that? Why do we generally, as a rule, then have one project at a time?
I don't know, but it's good.
I think it's I think it's because we want to work async, right? So if you imagine if you have more projects, right? So you have to have more like this synchronization points between different team members. So if you're gonna do it in a sync way, which you do like by posting messages or recording looms, then the delay would be much higher between different projects, right? But if you work on one project, then you can, just like flow, like you know, like in which state the project is, and everybody else is also on the same page in this project, if it makes sense. And also another reason is that we are a small team, right? So we don't have, because if you have like 5 people on one project and 5 people on another project, and one of them is like switching between it, like 4 other people are still working in it, right? But if we have like just one designer and one developer, you cannot afford this luxury.
Sure. Yeah. So how does it do you think working on one project at a time, do you think that also means that you're able to, I don't know, you're more focused on the quality of what you're doing rather than like getting it out to get
Probably,
that done,
yes.
get that take that shut down to move on to the, so that's another element, that's another sort of impact on the product and the company then, that you've got that focus on.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot with the quality, because you can like generate a lot of ideas. You have more time to think about it, so you can explore more, so you can find a better solution for that. One thing that we didn't mention actually is that we also work like with other, in my case, with other designers when we need to. Like we have a weekly meeting where we can show the designs and then grab feedback and then change details, or maybe change the whole thing because we didn't see something coming.
This is a sync meeting. You have like a video call and showcase.
Yes. It's we do that every week, and you don't need to present anything, but if you want to grab some feedback, it's really helpful to talk to other designers, because sometimes when we are talking about that, it feels a little bit lonely, right? Because we are working on something and then we need to hand it off to another person, and that's it. But we do talk to each other. Not only designers, sometimes I need to talk to Nikolay, and then we call each other and we discuss something to understand it better. Because I think it's important. Sometimes you just need another person thinking with you about that problem. We do that, but it's not part of the process. So if you don't feel like it, you don't need to do it. But it might be helpful sometimes, every now and then. So we have that as well.
Just to put everything in the perspective, that you have to think about it, that we as a company work as async and remote, like everybody works remote now, but work as async. It doesn't mean that you don't you are not allowed to have meetings, right? So you pretty much are. It's just like we don't have a rigid enforcement of it, right? So like if you have a like I used to work in one time with the like very dogmatic Scrum company. It was like way long ago, and nobody was talking about remote work, and everybody was in the office. But the process was like with everything, like daily stand-up, meetings, demo, etc., and everything. Oh yeah, another thing that we don't have in the projects framework is the iterations. And I think this is quite a cycles, right? So because usually companies, even if they don't go with like a full-on agile methodology, right? They still have like cycles, like maybe 4-week cycle or 2-week cycle or like 6-week cycle. Here we don't have it. And this is also stems because we are async and remote, and this allows to like ship projects at different time. So like some projects would require much more time to work on. Some projects are smaller, and you know, like you don't have to like ship by a specific date, and also don't do estimates as well. So we do like a rough estimate when the project might be completed, and then along this way we give updates like how much time do we need else, or maybe something happened like we need to like do a big refactoring, and that, you know, pushed us back. But there's no, you know, deadlines, there's no estimates. I mean, there are some deadlines in terms of like it doesn't have to take a ridiculous amount of time, but it's not like, yeah, they're not set by the process. They're not set by a board somewhere, you know, deciding that in this half a year or this quarter you have to ship it. Usually just like we go with it.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of it is that, you know, everyone's given the autonomy and the trust to do it and to do it well and to deliver it within a reasonable time. And I think as far as deadlines concerned, I often hear Jack saying this: as long as you're not blocking anyone else, you know, there's no, it's getting it right rather than
yes. I think our process is more about checkpoints than like checkpoints that need to exist, and there's no deadline for them, but you need to make that checkpoint, you know. And whatever you do in between those checkpoints, I think it depends on the project and the people that are working on the project. And I think that's the natural part. So you don't have all the rituals that you would have in a Scrum setting. But if you want to do a daily with your pair in that project, you can do it. So it depends, right?
Yeah.
Whatever makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really lovely things about working at Circuit personally, is that is just really and I think it's something that you have to do when you're a fully remote company and you're async, is that you have to trust each other and the team to just do their thing. And I think that's one of the really nice things about the flow of it, that it does feel natural. It doesn't feel like a forced framework that everybody's stuck to, even if it seems like, what are we doing this for, or it's just overkill, or whatever that reason is. And just to touch on the async part again and the semi-async part, I think we sort of, as a rule of thumb, and I don't know if this is the same actually within the projects framework, I imagine it is, but I think I've heard said that it's around about 80% of it is async and maybe 20 is synchronous throughout an entire project, and that we default to async where possible, but sometimes that sync part is necessary. I mean, I don't know whether those percentages are completely accurate or definitely not written in stone, but does that sound like just as a sort of top shelf?
I would just say that it's probably even higher async. So like I can remember some projects where I didn't have any meetings about
none at
like
all.
where's the design? Like implemented it, asked a couple of questions, we resolved them also asynchronously in the comments, then updated the version, shipped, all good.
But I guess it depends on the complexity of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes the people that are involved, I would say, because like I would prefer recording a Loom when discussing, like having that Loom recorded for everyone to be able to discuss together, than having a meeting most of the time. I would have a meeting just to, if something is not like, we cannot communicate about that. We tried and we could not get to a solution, or we could not understand each other. I think this is the point I would go with a sync meeting to solve the problem. But most of the time I would prefer not doing it. And I think this is related to the people that work at Circuit, to be honest, because I know people that would prefer having a meeting like from the beginning, you know, like the first thing that they would think would be to have a meeting. But I think we work at Circuit and we like this setting because we are similar in that aspect, probably. You know.
Yeah, and you get used to it, right? So like maybe in the beginning I was more
Yeah.
like chatting more, maybe jumping on calls more. Now it's less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I actually, this was one of the things that I really struggled with when I first joined the team, was getting over that default to meeting way of solving a problem or getting a question answered. It was a really weird thing to. It sounds so straightforward when you say it, but when you're actually working in it, it's amazing how those sort of old habits and old behaviours just kind of follow you. But it, same as you, Nick, it was after a while, the penny started to drop, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I get it now. But it is, I mean, it's better for me. I find it a much, much better way of working for me personally. But I'd be great to hear about how it benefits you personally.
I think it's about the focus part that Nick said earlier. Like, I don't need to stop anything to go to a meeting and then come back to what I was doing. That is particularly difficult for me because I need to focus on something for a long time. I cannot like working 1 hour and then stop and then another hour. It's difficult. So I think this is the best part of having this async, because sometimes you wake up, you don't want to read a big text, a long text, and you can do it later. This is good as well, because you can choose when you are ready for it.
Yeah.
This
So
is good.
I think you also touched on about the fact that it works really well because we're a small team. And whilst I think like we are, I don't think Circuit's ever going to be a huge company. I guess we'll grow a little bit. And looking ahead, do you see the projects framework evolving? Do you think has anything changed about it since you've joined the team, or has it always been the same, or can you see it having to change as we do more stuff?
We are changing something now that it's related to localization. So the engineers would create the strings to add to the app and do this like after the design. And then we are changing that for the designers to do it. So once the engineers get the project, they would get the designs and also the text inside of the designs already thought out and ready to use. This is something that we noticed it wasn't working very well, and we changed that to make it work better. And we are starting to do like this right now. And what I see for the future is adding something to keep track of the project, or maybe, I don't know, to make it like more alive after you finish it.
Okay.
I would say something like this.
Yeah.
This is my opinion, but
yeah. I just wanted to mention that after the project is shipped, kind of completed, we also sometimes I think we need to do it more often. We do post like a retro, basically, if you come from the traditional agile thingy. But it's also a thing, so people will just post like what went well, what can be improved, etc. I think this like changed in the last 1.5 years since I joined, because I think this is now like a part of the framework. It used to be just maybe somebody would do
incidental.
it. Yeah.
But and I guess as the team grows, because of the way you work and because you only have one project at a time, and because there's not a lot of meetings, so your output's higher. Even if the company grows and we end up with 20 engineers, 30 engineers, the project's team sizes would still be relatively small, I guess, and rather because we don't tend to ship huge, massive product changes like some companies do. Do we? Am I right in thinking that? It's not like something that we've been working on for 6 months and then we drop very often. That involves loads of people.
Exactly, and also it would probably like the cause and effect would be in the opposite direction. We wouldn't hire like 10 more engineers on Android because, like we would have to change the process so much. So I think like maybe, I think it's probably a little bit different on the backend and on the business side of project that we have. So it probably would involve more coordination. So there might be more people like more engineers on the project. And this might be the same in some future when we grow for mobile projects because we build native apps. So we have iOS and Android engineers who are not just cross-platform engineers, which is also kind of different from other companies as well. We might have like a couple of people on the project, but mostly if it's a small project, it'll be just one engineer per platform.
So last question from me, unless there's anything else you want to tell me. But for someone that's used to working in a different environment, or in Agile or Scrum, for example, Agile Scrum, what would be the biggest adjustment or learning curve if they join Circuit?
I think that it's very quiet, right? You don't get a lot of messages, a lot of going on. It's just like sometimes you get days without any messages. And in the beginning, I used to check whether my tweet is working. I would just reload it, right? I'm not getting any messages up there. But it's just everybody's working, right? So everybody's like writing code or doing something else. There's still a lot of like if you as an engineer, there's a lot of discussion on the GitHub, right? And we have our RFCs. We do them on GitHub as well. So you can read the documents which is proposing to do some change and comment there in the pull request. So there's still a lot of like this traffic, but it's not busy work, right? So when you can do the meeting this time, or what about this and this? So I think like it's probably the biggest adjustment is that it's quiet and you just sometimes you don't understand, like, am I okay? Am I doing everything all right? Or like everything is broken, everybody just logged off and
yeah. Oh, what about you, Lorenza?
For me, it's the same thing. It's quiet and you need to make the decision. As I was saying earlier, like I think it was the part that I felt weird at the beginning, but then I understood that was the expected behavior that I should have. But it was too different from what I had before. So.
Yeah. And is there anything, I mean, other than that, or maybe it is just that, is there anything that you wish you'd have known, right, like something that took you a while to figure out? Maybe, I mean, it seems like when you're explaining it to me, it seems like there's so many elements to it. Like, it seems quite, I don't know how it compares to other, but it seems like it's quite new, it's quite a different way of working. But is there anything that you wish you'd have known early on that would have just helped you, like, helped it click in a bit better? Or
yes, I think it's related to asking questions before you have something to present. Because me as a designer, I feel like I always have I need to have something to present for people to understand me. Because sometimes I'm talking about the button and you need to visualize the button to understand what I'm talking about. And I saw a lot of people making a lot of complex questions in threads when I came to Circuit, and they didn't have anything to draw or to like illustrate what they were talking about. And this was I took a time to learn that, to do that, like to asking questions before I start drawing, designing stuff. Because I was used to do it in a different way as well. I needed to have something before asking questions, and this is good. It's good for me.
Yeah, I guess that's also this autonomy part, that you mostly you make decision yourself. I don't know what else. I'm so used to it, so it's hard to
Hard to remember.
how was it, like how was it
Yeah.
before that in the beginning.
But I guess it's any
Um,
kind of like top tip that you give someone that's new to the team now to help them really pick it up or get to grips with how the project framework, how to best work within
I
it.
think I just usually like take it slow in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it'll pick up. Like you'll start. I think like probably the big difference, if you have somebody here, it will take some time. It will take like a lot of time for them to get into it and like be very productive as much as they can be, versus other companies. So like I think like the ramp up is much longer, right? So it's the left here, yeah, right. So the ramp up is much longer, but the scaling is much higher. So like if you join a traditional company when there's a lot of meetings, your productivity would top up very quickly. Although you would like feel in the beginning, oh, I shipped a task or I did something, and like went to like 15 meetings in the first week. It feels like a lot, but then like overall a year later you would be shipping the same amount of stuff, right? In here in the beginning you would feel like, oh, I don't know, like, and then nothing happens. But a year later it would be 10 times more, because you're already into this, the code base, and you don't have to go to a lot of meetings to figure stuff out. You can do it yourself.
So it's
another thing that I wanted to do, that I kind of changed it since I joined, is that the default way of figuring something out is figuring out yourself here, right? So usually people just ask a question in the chat, right? And like, oh, how to do this, and somebody has to look and like answer you. And although it's a common way of fixing it, like fixing the problems, or maybe like figuring stuff out, like here it's much more beneficial. Oh, okay, but this might be in Notion. So I go to Notion, I search Notion. Oh yeah, it was here. Like, or oh, like I joined the project later and the iOS part is already like shipped, and I did some task and then I hit something like, oh, how do I do this in this particular case when the user's like logged out or something? And then I can just ask, right? But I can just scroll or maybe search and find it. Oh, yeah, it was there. Like I can.
So it's that working autonomously to unblock yourself and find those solutions.
Yeah.
And I guess this is like when you're working with someone in I don't know, in Germany versus someone in Brazil, and you've got a big lag, and it's kind of so it's that sort of self-serve, answering your own questions sort of thing.
Yes.
That's something I found, like, even not unrelated to the project framework, but that was something I definitely kept tripping over. The default was to just ask and actually just go and find it yourself, because then it will happen a lot quicker. But I guess and
you also learn more, right?
Oh, go on.
Yeah,
exactly. You do learn more. And I think the knock-on effect of that is the flexibility that it gives you personally as well in your own life, in terms of work-life balance and being able to live your life around your work, and it's just so much easier. It's great. It's a great way on a personal level, I think.
Another thing that I think it helps a lot is being project-based also, because if you are in a squad and you need to solve a bigger problem with your squad in other companies, you would have KPIs. I don't know. You would have data to monitor and to increase numbers, and very often it happens for us to for us to prioritize stuff just because we needed to change a number instead of prioritizing what makes more sense for the company, because we were working on squads and not on projects. When we work on projects, it's easier for us to prioritize the right thing as a company, and we feel like everything that we build is shipped, and we do a lot more work because of that, because everything makes sense in the company level, So everything goes together in a way. And I think this is important as well. Like it's a bigger differentiated for circuits, that we are not trying to make something happen just because we are on a team, a specific team. We have projects, we ship stuff, and we are helping the company as a whole.
Yeah, and you get that whole visibility of why you're doing what you're doing, and that's quite a unique thing.
And you also work on a lot of different projects, right? And this is exciting for me, at least, because I was working on the scanner project, and then I went to a totally different one, like working with voice input. I don't know.
And
same for engineers, because you're not.
Sorry, I think we've got a bit of a delay.
Go ahead. No.
Go shut up.
Okay. Yeah, I think if we both start talking, I just don't hear. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, I just wanted to add that it's same for the engineer, that it's nice because you're also touching a lot of parts in the code base. You're not just like siloed into like one part of the company that works on this particular feature or set of features, and you just work on everything basically. Some things you can have a say. Like I would prefer projects that involve more like UI stuff, or maybe you don't like UI stuff, you can work on this stuff. And if it happens to be that there is a choice, you can choose, right?
Just like one last question I think people probably want to know. So when you're joining the team and you're learning about the projects framework for the first time, I know that we have this documented in Notion how it works. Is that the sort of default way to read up on it and understand it? Is that how you got to know how it works, or was it done more organically than that?
I read it, but I learned most of what I know by doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do because everyone is already working that way. So you just, pair with them.
Yeah. So it feels quite natural to just fit in and get your head around how it's working. That's really cool. Thank you. Well, I do link the projects framework in part of our public company handbook anyway. So if anybody does want to have a look at it, I think it's really nice for anyone that's interested in joining the team to have a little look at it. That is linked there. And also, I do actually, I'll highlight it to engineers and product designers that are joining the team. I'll specifically send them that information because I think it's quite a big thing, isn't it? Really, it's a big part of how you manage your day to day. But yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you very much for doing that with me today. It was really good. I feel like I understand it a lot better. I probably knew more about it than I realised I did as well, which was quite nice. So I don't know how that happened, but it did. But thanks so much for joining me today. It was really cool and good to catch up.
Yes. Thank you, Sadie.
Thank you, Sadie.
Thanks.